kójókójó làbẹ̀wò ìkúkú dùkú lóko Podium International wọ́n ti wà tipẹ́tipẹ́ látìgbà tí wọ́n ti ń bàbọ̀ wọn ò fìgbà kan tẹ́rì o wọ́n ti wá ṣe bẹ̀bẹ̀ wọ́n ti gbé bẹ̀bẹ̀ dé Podium Cinema ni wọ́n tún gbé dé Podium Cinema lórí YouTube ẹ fọ́lọ̀ wọn kẹ́ ẹ láìkì wọn kẹ́ ẹ subscribe ibẹ̀ lẹ́tì mọ̀ wọ àwọn àjá àbálẹ̀ fíìmù ẹ̀dọ̀kí fíìmù tó léfo gan tààrà Podium Cinema mo bẹ́rí fún yín fíìmù mẹ́sàn-án ọ̀tọ̀ọ̀tọ̀ ni wọ́n kó jáde o àwọn gbàǹkọ́gbé fíìmù èkíní májẹ̀mú ẹ̀gbọ́n èkejì my wet ẹ̀kẹta ọmọ ẹni ẹ̀kẹrin àlàmú èkó ẹ̀karùn-ún àìmọ̀ ṣe wá rí pé nǹkan kì í ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ ràgbó ó kọjá bẹ́ẹ̀ eléyìí lẹ́ti kẹjù èdè Yorùbá ni wọ́n fi ṣe àwọn fíìmù yìí ẹlẹ́ẹ̀kẹfà sẹ́ẹ̀kẹsàn-án èdè òyìnbó ni wọ́n kọ́ ẹ̀kẹfà tẹ́mà èkeje the casting ẹ̀kẹjọ M1 the detective ẹ̀kẹsàn 100 M1 the detective at 100 orí síríìsì lẹ́fì máa wò ó ìyẹn dàgbéléwò nìyẹn Podium International Podium Cinema ẹ fọ́lọ̀ wọn kẹ́ ẹ láìkì wọn lórí YouTube wọ́n wà lórí Facebook wọ́n wà lórí Instagram Podium Cinema ó ti dọbẹ̀ ẹ subscribe.
Yeah, good afternoon, our listeners. I'm your regular host, Ayode Emola, and I've got with me today Professor Ayodeji Agbonjimi, who is going to help us digest education in Nigeria. We've got the ongoing ASUU strike now, and really biting both workers and students alike. So a lot of people are thinking if students are not graduating, they can't go on to complete their studies. They can't go for their national service. They can't even go outside to pursue a master's degree. And it means majority of the activities is standstill. So I'll just allow my guest to introduce himself for us. Professor Agbonjimi, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Emola. I am Ayodeji Agbonjimi. I teach at a private school here in Nigeria, Jai Crowther University, Faculty of Law. Though my first degree was in education, up to PhD, and then I moved to law to study law and teach law subsequently. I think that is sufficient for now, except if there is need for more.
Yeah. I mean, that's okay for now. We'll just go straight in. From my counting, it's nearly 8 weeks now, or if not, I think 8 weeks, between 4 and 8 weeks, depending on which institution that ASUU has been on strike. And we always know that the bottom line is a lot of people always see it as money. Either the federal government is not paying the lecturers well, or there is no equipment. But majority of the times, it all boils down to you've promised to increase our salary. You've given us a few of it. We've given you a deadline of 16 months or 12 months or 8 months, and nothing is happening. Now we are telling you, if you don't fulfill our promises within the next 2 or 3 days or 2 or 3 weeks or months, we are going on strike. And we hear ASUP, which is the Polytechnic colleagues, also saying, oh, see, we're giving the federal government 2 weeks. If they don't do anything, we're going on strike. What really is the cause of strike in Nigeria, especially when it comes to higher institution, yourself being a lecturer in the Federal University before?
Thank you very much. The basic problem with education in Nigeria is that it has been politicized and underfunded. If we can cast our mind back, when Awolowo started the free education in the old Western region, education was funded. I think about 50% of the Western region gross domestic product was spent on education. And not having sufficient school then. The missionary schools were giving what is known as granting aids. But ever since the military took over, I think the military started their own free primary education in 1975 or thereabout, when they first came out with their national policy on education. That was several years after Awolowo had launched the free education in the old Western region. The problem primarily is funding. Awolowo was spending about 50% of the GDP of Western region on primary education then. And I think the UNESCO recommended for education about 26% of the gross domestic product of each country. Nigeria has never budgeted 7%. I think this year is still low, I think about 6.5 or something. And so education has been politicized, and you have multiplicity of higher education. I don't know what the federal government is doing in education anyway. Why must each state have a federal university, a federal polytechnic, a federal NCE, when you will not fund it? That's the problem, funding.
Yeah, is it that if I guess a lot of people will be wondering, is it that because education is the bedrock of any society, and in places like Australia we have 100% literacy rate, which cannot be said in Nigeria. In the old Western region, even though we cannot say we have high literacy rates, at least every child was guaranteed education. Every child was guaranteed education, at least for primary, and then it went on to secondary. But today, the phenomenon we have is that many people are now moving into the private education sector, yourself being in the private institution. And I know yourself, you've taught in South Africa. There was a time a lot of our brains like yourself left Nigeria to go to South Africa and other countries to teach. And we know Nigeria is not funding education, although many things are being bastardized in Nigeria today. Peradventure we get a Yoruba nation. How would you want a Yoruba government to tackle education? Although I know you said Baba Awolowo was spending almost 50% GDP on education. In any economy, that is not sustainable. How do you think education can be funded that at least the child who do not have a father or a mother or an uncle or a sister who still has the brain to go to school, how can they be rest assured that, yes, we will still get that education that drives the economy and improve the welfare and well-being of the individual?
Thank you very much. I think, well, when Awolowo devoted 50% of the GDP, he was able to prudentially manage the remaining 50%. I think not. I don't know of any sector of the economy that suffer. You see, education is fundamental to development. And even if we cannot, I'm talking of Nigeria now, if they cannot spend as much as Awolowo did, they should at least meet the minimum prescribed by UNESCO. They should at least meet the minimum prescribed by UNESCO. You see, the basic problem with funding education is that the elite, okay, have the privilege of sending their children abroad, and so they are managing the education system in Nigeria. So they don't care about it. They don't. Now, let me give you this example. We know that education is poorly funded in Nigeria. As long ago as 1993, There was this act passed by the military government, where they call it decree then, providing for the establishment of education bank so that the children of the poor can have access to
education.
To go to with they're almost interest free. 1993 up to this time, that bank has not been established. And I think Mr. Femi Falana took Jonathan's government to court. And the court ordered that the bank should be established. While Buhari was campaigning in 2015, he promised to establish the bank. The bank is yet to be established. So they don't want the children of the poor to go to school.
And that's really pathetic. You made mention of politicizing education. I remember when Agagu was governor of Ondo State, he created a higher institution in his hometown. When Goodluck was president of Nigeria, he created higher institution in his hometown. And you did say if they cannot fund education, they should stop creating higher institutions. Now, is there any means to checkmate this? Do they say the judiciary or the legislature have powers to checkmate where and when educational facilities are being cited? Because if you're going to open a university in your village because it's convenient for you, not minding the demographics and people, who needs to be saying, hey, you need to do proper consultation before this is? Because the problem is when they leave power, that project is never, like the bank you said, that project is never completed, and then it becomes a tussle. Who is going to chase them for it? And then you see the locals starting to spend their money to try and do one thing or the other to bring this institution up. And at the end of the day, it becomes an abandoned project. So is there any body, any regulating body or any legislative body or judiciary that can checkmate these executives when they make this pronouncement of bringing into being or legislating it through executive powers?
Well, thank you very much. Ab initio, I said that education has been politicized. Every executive governor would like to establish an higher institution in his own domain, which Awolowo did not do. Awolowo established Obafemi Awolowo, or the then University of Ife. He did not cite it at Ikenne, his hometown. Now, higher institution is seen as part of the political patronage. Okay? I don't know what the federal government is doing with a university in each state. That's 36 universities when the existing ones were not sufficiently funded. In order to solve the problem of funding, ASUU suggested some years back education tax fund. And yet they collect billions from companies.
For education tax fund.
From education tax fund. I don't know the percentage of the profit that companies are supposed to contribute. If the money has been judiciously used to expand existing university rather than establishing mushroom universities and higher institutions all over the place, I think it will have been better off. And you see, there's this regional or geographical politics in education. Those who manage the Ministry of Education as of now, and all the agencies under the Ministry of Education are northerners. Where education for the common man, the Almanjeri is not there. They don't want the children of the poor in the north to go to school. And that is what they want to apply throughout the nation. And I initially, when the idea of a private university was being canvassed, I opposed it. That why do you need private university? And the reason is simply because there are no sufficient spaces for all applicants to enter the university in Nigeria. Rather than expand the existing one, they started creating mushroom universities. I think some years back, about 1.5 million applicants sat for JAMB. And at the end of it, only less than 500,000 were admitted. And so private universities became the way out to make higher education available to some. Because it's not available to the poor man. The fees are high. And so private universities have not actually served the objectives of making higher education spaces available to all.
In fact, yeah, talking about numbers, because like you said, you opposed the emergence of private institutions. We know it's the failure of leadership, it's the failure of the political class on setting the tone for education. And the private institutions, the Samuel Jaikrada, the Afe Babalola, the winners, the redeemed. Now, are there more private universities in the South than in the North? Should we get an independent Yoruba nation? How? Because the population now is going to outstrip any institutions we have. Like you said, we have over 1.5 million prospective candidates sitting for JAMB. And I don't think we have that space in the whole of Nigeria. Somebody once said all the universities in London alone, not the United Kingdom, London, which has about 8.8 million population, is more than the universities in the entire of Nigeria that has a population of 200 million. How do you think the Yoruba nation can catch up? What would be an advice for the future Yoruba government in terms of meeting the needs of this? Because quite a lot of people attempting to go to the universities are children from the South, either from Yoruba land or Igbo land or whatever. How do you think a future Yoruba government can catch up, not building mushroom schools? How can they catch up with providing enough universities that are fully and adequately funded, that everyone who desires to go to higher institution is getting their place in the schools? Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's not a rocket science. It's prudent management of fund, revenue drive. So if funds, even the little one that is allocated or budgeted for higher institutions, some university staff mismanage it. So it's prudent management of fund. You see, it's not that fund is not the problem of education in Nigeria. It's the lack of political will. Now, assuming there is an Oduduwa republic, if those who are put in charge prudently manage the finances of the proposed Oduduwa republic, there won't be problem. Rather than creating more universities or higher institutions, expand the existing one, put in place as managers of higher education those who are not corrupt. The university is not, I say it with all sense of responsibility, the university too is corrupt. That is the truth. I mean, you can't wall the university completely from the larger society.
Of course.
And
We
so
see the issue of school fees, the issue of handouts, the issue of field trips, excursions, and different methods to get money out of students?
Well, it's quite unfortunate, but it's a question of attitudinal change. If we get the Oduduwa Republic, we should work seriously towards having attitudinal change, especially from the leadership. If there is attitudinal change, the finances are well managed, then there won't be problem. That was what Awolowo did. Prudent management of fund. All loopholes for financial personal enrichment were blocked, if not completely, sufficiently. That is the truth. If we get the Oduduwa Republic and you put the round peg in a round hole and corruption is minimized, and those who are fond of corrupting the system are adequately punished, nobody is above the law, then everybody will fall in line. But as of today, some Nigerians are above the law. Let me tell you this, I see no reason. In all honesty, I delivered a paper on the right to education and who is the duty bearer. The state is the duty bearer of education. Yes, the parents can support. Because at the end of it all, if you train your children, they're not going to serve you, you're going to serve the larger society. So if you want adequate patriotism, you have to work for it by educating the child. Now,
I want to ask you this particular question, and I know education and health, they are two big areas where a lot of people always look at the political class. And I want to bring this example because it's very unique. The governor of Kaduna State, El Rufai, put his own child in a public school just to show that this public school can meet up to standard. And at a time when there was terrorism and things, he pulled his child out of the school because he said he had.
Again, no.
Yeah, are you hearing me? Yeah, he pulled his child out of the public school because of fear of kidnap and things. And then we see Boris Johnson, Prime Minister of England, who, when he came down with COVID, everybody was looking to see whether he would go to a private hospital or to a government hospital. So he went to a government hospital. Thank God he survived. A lot of people would say, make laws so that the children of the politicians also attend public schools, so that they don't just concentrate on attending just private schools, so that they too can feel the pinch. For me, I don't subscribe to a situation where in Nigeria where we have more private schools than government schools. Supposing we have an Oduduwa Republic today, what would be your advice? Will it be a phased approach of nationalizing the private school? I don't mean grabbing it from them like Nigeria did the missionary schools and then discover that, oh no, we can't take care of it, have it back. So will it be an arrangement where government will say, whether it's private school, whether it's public school, all the children that are attending these schools are citizens of Oodua or residents of Oodua and deserve quality education, and the government will be able to cater for every child, irrespective of private or public school. What would be your advice and approach to that situation?
Thank you very much. I once told a friend that if I have my way and I become the Minister of Education, I will restructure the whole system. You see, the foundation for education is laid early in life. between 0 to 5, when the brain is still developing.
Yeah.
Okay? I will not, as a Minister of Education, in the proposed Oduduwa Republic, I will not permit private participation in nursery and primary education. I will only, being a capitalist society, but I would not want to do it to be a capitalist society because capitalism is already cancerous now. I will only allow public participation, or private participation rather, in secondary school. And I will not allow private participation in higher education. So private participation in the supply of education will be limited to primary school, to secondary school. The foundation will have been solidly laid in nursery and primary. That is my own view of education. But with private participation, well, the current, what we now call public school, government school, there's inequality in the place. Many schools that belong to government, or some, let me put it that way, like Government College, Ibadan, Queen School, these schools are better resourced because they are directly under the Ministry of Education than secondary schools that we have in my hometown. And so there's inequality, resource inequality of secondary school up till now. In fact, you know, I've forgotten the name of the person who is in charge of the ETF. He said that how many private universities do we have in the north that will now be funding private universities from ETF? That's nothing. Because I believe that the duty bearer of education is the government. You now have private participation in the provision of higher education simply because government do not meet the demand. And the issue now is, why can't, to make more spaces available to the children, even the children of the poor, why can't the government from ETF pay the salaries of staff in private university so that the fees can come down and more spaces will be available to the children of the poor? But the argument of the guy who is in charge of ETF is that we have few private universities in the north. It's the south who will benefit. Many of the companies that even provide the funds for ETF are in the south. Yes.
Talking about secondary school. Yeah, talking about secondary school, Prof. You were at your old school last week, giving out award for which I would say it's a form of exercise, a form of distressing for the children. And for me, I've always canvassed that rather than have 5-day learning week, why can't we have 4 days learning and 1 day of sports? It could be every Tuesday sports, it could be every Wednesday, it could be every Thursday. Let's put it within the week so that we can inculcate sporting activities into our education system. So rather than just, because it's when we develop the culture right from when people are children, then they can look at, if we're talking of maybe football, rugby, basketball, baseball, tennis, all sorts of sports can be inculcated into education at that early age. Then the children would grow with it. What's your take with having sports? I know that we have sport, but they always do it like after school club. Is it that the curriculum cannot accommodate it, or the curriculum can accommodate it and the teachers are not having much time? Or how do you think that can blend in? And then we'll play the video of the marathon of your old school.
Thank you very much. Teachers of sports are part of the problem. Those who are trained in physical education, and again, that is simply because physical culture is not part of the culture here. I once said it in a class that the highest paid person is a footballer. The highest paid professor in United Kingdom at a particular time was not earning more than how much was that then?
Maybe 100,000.
150,000 pounds sterling per year. And
That's what
I
footballers
think
take a week.
and Man City was proposing to engage Lionel Messi for about how much per week?
Millions.
So, but the physical culture is not well developed in Nigeria. We admire pot belly. I could agree with you that, and again, we need the space for sports. Sports is a fundamental human right. If you look at the International Covenant on Economic Rights, the 1966 Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, physical health is one of the provisions there. Everybody is entitled to physical health. If you participate in sports, you are immune to some non-communicable diseases like cancer. And so in some sub-regions of the world like European Union, they have charters on sports, sport charter and all the rest. But here in Nigeria, the little spaces that is provided for children, pupils to jump and run in schools
are not adequate.
Are being built up now. Are being suburb buildings. I went on a teaching, let me tell you this. I went on a teaching practice supervision to Lagos Island when I was still in LASU. And during break, these pupils were asked to drop their head on the desk. And I called the teachers aside and I said, look, Tafa Balewa is not far from you here. Can't you call a meeting of all the games master of the primary and secondary school on Lagos Island and make use of the open space in Tafa Balewa Square for sports? There was a cricket pitch there. I don't know what happens, but the little open spaces, even in primary and secondary schools, are being taken up by buildings.
Which is pathetic, especially in Lagos. I'm just going to play this video for our viewers to see.
I was built to be the best. No.
Okay, probably. I'll play it for a second. And that's the
to my destiny. I have waited patiently. I have vision, though I believe.
So could you just explain a little of what was going on there for our viewers who are curious to know?
Yeah, that was at Fatima College, Ikire, where I started my secondary school. And while at Fatima, there was this friend of mine, great friend, he's late now. He was the first old student to become a Reverend Father. And he was also the first old student to be a Monsignor. In the Catholic Church, Monsignor is regarded as a junior bishop. Then he died some years back. That's Monsignor Peter Ajibola. And the old students in Ibadan wanted the chapel in the school named after him. We did not get any response from the school. Well, politically, Fatima College is in Osun State. But when it comes to the diocesan geographical mapping, it belongs to Ikire Catholic Church belongs to Ibadan Diocese. So when we were not making any headway for Ajibola to be honored, then the old students in Ibadan decided, okay, let's organize something in his memory. And one of us, Professor Richard Adegbola, who was actually late Monsignor Ajibola's classmate in Fatima College, decided that we should organize a marathon in his memory and in his honor. And we want to make it a permanent thing. But for this year, it's closed. We will open it to secondary school students in Ikire very soon, at the next edition. So we decided to organize the marathon race. And we had that one last week, Saturday. So that's it. If the church is not going to honor him by naming the chapel in the school after him, then we can just institute a sporting activity in his memory. That's how we came about the Monsignor Peter Ajibola's Marathon, sponsored by Professor Richard Adegbola, and I was the chairman of the organizing committee. So that's what happened last Saturday.
Yeah, hopefully things like that would inspire a lot of people to actually do things for the community, because when people's memory are being honored, and then I mean it's a win-win situation. The children who are participating in that sport get physical activity, their blood is flowing, and I mean bringing that.
Professor Adegbola was so generous. We provided them with the running shirt, the official shirt, the rider something, the cup, the medals, and the first three were given some token. The guy who came first, we gave him a prize money of 20,000 naira.
Wow.
Second, 15,000 naira. And third, 10,000 naira.
10,000.
Please, Professor Adegbola must have spent close to 600,000 naira to get that going.
And this is what we talk about corporate social responsibilities. Are we seeing companies coming out to actually pull their weight? Because I know there's supposed to be what the corporate social responsibility to take care of activities like, or to support activities like this. Are we seeing companies pulling their weight to support either sporting activities or physical activities or educational activities in our educational development?
Well, at the higher education level, I would say yes, because I know that Coca-Cola sponsors NUGA reasonably, because I was a member of NUGA committee before, and I was even the chairman of NUGA subcommittee on swimming, and I was also a legal advisor to NUGA before I left the country. But at the secondary school level, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Okay.
The companies, I'm not very sure whether companies are really sponsoring secondary school inter-house sports. But the basic problem is that we need to reorganize school sports. School sports is dead. That's the truth. School sports is dead. In fact, as a former National General Secretary of Nigerian Sports Science and Medicine Association, I had a discussion with the then NUGA Secretary, Mr. Urudele. And you see, you have to put it at the political level too. We were trying to meet the chairman of the sports committee of the House of Rep and put in place a kind of either certification program by the Nigerian Association of Sports Science and Medicine to certify those who will be operating physical fitness clinics all over the country. But the attitude of our leaders, professors in this, I don't know. Once some of us became professor, we sit on our ass. We don't want to be creative again. That's unfortunate. And I've challenged so many of my colleagues. Your work starts when you assume the chair. But in Nigeria, many professors, they sit on their chair as soon as they get their professorship. No, I mean, we need, honestly speaking, we need attitudinal change all over the place. That's just it. And so, many companies at the secondary school and primary school level, no, I don't think so. I think we should bring back school sports. Then we have sports academies like the one that is managed by Chegbami.
Yeah. If we look at the UK model, so what the former Prime Minister John Major did was he made it a national endeavor. So what John Major did was to get the UK to go into a national lottery. And people play the national lottery, maybe £1 or £10. And the funds being generated from that national lottery was able to be able was now not diverted, but was set aside for the development of sport. So that helped Britain to go on to become world champions in several other sports like swimming, jumping, basketball, volleyball, and different sports. In an Oduduwa Republic, would we be looking at a sports levy or to say maybe a national lottery? Talking about national lottery, for somebody like me who would have moral issues with it, say, do you want people to go into gambling or betting or whatever? Or let's say, okay, maybe a fraction to say, let's have a national levy on individuals or parents or workers or businesses. How do you think we can be able to fund sports? Because talking of sports now, the Yoruba Nation Football Federation is going to be participating in the African CONCACAF, something like the African Football Nations, and the organizers are rallying for support for people to put in money to support them. When people are thinking, oh, there's money for other things, we should be focusing our resources and our finance in other things. How do you think we can, because if we say sports as well, it's going to cost money to get equipment, it's going to cost money to get spaces, it's going to cost money to actually kit the people who would participate in this sport and actually get money to give them incentives for participating in these various sports. I know when they become professional, then it becomes like a business, and then the business can take care of itself. Sports is a big business, both in the US and in UK. In US, some secondary schools actually have active sports, and they go on to perform in national level, and they get brands and sponsors. how do you think we could fund sports when it comes to youth education in Nigeria?
Thank you very much. Well, in order to do our republic, we will be grappling with many initial problems, and sports should be one of those, because healthy mind in healthy body, so as to get the work of building Oduduwa Republic. So we need sports, we need physical activity. I presented a paper at University of Botswana, where I look at the pyramid of physical activity. As a child, you need play, and so your parents will provide sufficient space and toys for you to play with. In the primary and secondary school, amateur, if you have the talent, that is quickly talent identification programs, you are spotted, then you go to the national level. From there you go to the professional. So that's the pyramid. The numbers keep reducing. When it comes to policy on sports, there should be workshops and conferences to marshal out how to fund sports. You see, we might say sports is very expensive. That is simply because no company is producing sporting equipment. In the curriculum, in the engineering, you have sports technology. They produce the bat, cricket bat, hockey sticks, and everything. Because before, but I don't know what universities of technology, what they are doing. They should go into sports equipment production and establish them. I'll give you an example. I wanted to go to Simon Fraser University in Canada for a postdoctoral in economics. And I got in contact with one Professor Ross. And he has developed all these measuring calipers for determining body composition. He has the Rosscraft. And it's a big business now. And so if we can have sports technology producing, what stops us from producing running shoes?
You talked about universities of technology. We should challenge our universities of technology to produce for us. I went to the University of Technology. And then we've got the mechanical engineering department, we've got the agricultural department, we have the metallurgical department, we have the electrical department, and we've got all these beautiful departments. And I'm thinking in my head, why can't they produce an electric car?
Yeah, all they want to do here is struggle to become dean, struggle to become vice chancellor. Many of our intellectuals, academics, they don't think outside the box. That's the truth. And corruption has eaten deep into the university too. I can say that without any fear of honest contradiction. Okay? Everybody wants to cheat. You want to cheat to become a professor. You see, there's nothing. I've forgotten the name of the university now, whether in Australia or New Zealand. If you look at the physical education program, sports program, you have sports engineering, sports technology. We produce height and skin. Why can't we manufacture running shoes? Why can't we manufacture shoes for soccer? But we have to rely on Puma. We have to rely on Adidas. So why would these sports be very expensive?
Of course.
Then there can be local improvisation.
And if these sports are being taken care of in the primary school to the secondary school, they can as well graduate into the university. And at this time, children are becoming more mature. and could even be playing or participating professionally. We saw Emma Radakanu, who went on to win the Australian Open. 18-year-old. That's the age of a university student. Imagine if Emma Radakanu, a tennis player or a Yoruba player of 18-year-old attending a university in Yoruba land, that will raise the profile of the school. That would bring sponsors. That would bring even companies to say, see, we want to do business with you. And even sports in itself has gone ahead to fund several schools in America. And with the ASUU strike, if we can blend sports with our education and reap the benefits that sports actually generates to the economy, to the fitness, to the education, do you think sports on its own in future could be a game changer and provide the necessary funding for even the education in higher education institutions?
That's my thought. I think so. It could be source of income. Sports business.
Sports business is a big business. Spain, Nigeria as a team, national team, used to be able to beat Spain in football. And Spain developed a program, a policy to develop Spanish footballers and to ensure that for every 11 players that you field on the field of play, you have at least 8 Spaniards. And what that did for them was it developed quite a lot of talent. We've got quite a lot of talents that are wasting. When I grew up, I knew a lot of good footballers who could not progress because there were not sufficient football pitches or training facilities or clubs or where they could develop their skills, and not everybody would be opportunity to travel outside the country to ply their trade. And then Spain went on, because of the development of their football and their La Liga, they went on to win the European Cup. They went on to win the World Cup. And then 2 of their big clubs, Barcelona and Real Madrid, dominated the UEFA Champions League. So if we're looking at sporting activities for a prospective Odua nation, like you said, I believe it could be a game changer for income generation. Just before we wrap up, for lecturers who are on strike now and students who perhaps are in their final year and wanting to graduate and go on to NYC, because everything is clocked. Some are looking and saying, oh, I want to be able to go on the July batch. I want to be able to finish and go on the September batch. The government is not saying anything now. And ASUU, they've got a list of demands that they are asking for. The private universities are still working. ASUU is threatening to go on strike. The military is threatening to go on strike. It seems like nothing is working in Nigeria. Apart from, we know we are concentrating on education now. What can ASUU do to help the children? Because it is their future we're looking at now that is in focus. I know they too, they need to eat, they need to feed their family, they need to have children who are in university or grandchildren who are in primary school or what. What can ASUU do now? Who does ASUU need to talk to? Is it that the ASUU need to put a strong statement or call the children to come out on a mass rally? Because it seems like everybody is contented and the children have gone to look for one thing or the other to do, and the lecturers are, somebody was even making a joke that they called an Uber and they discovered that the driver of the Uber was their lecturer in school. So what can ASUU do? Does ASUU need to say, listen, enough is enough? Either the Minister of Education resigns now, or the federal government needs to meet our demands and we are giving 2 weeks? Or does it take to shut down the system for us to understand the implication of children not being in school? What would be your advice to ASUU at this time? Let's direct our questions to ASUU now.
Well, I sympathize with ASUU.
Yes,
and so, if you want me to limit my response to ASUU alone, then
we've just got Baba Jala join us now. But before I come to Baba Jala, we'll just hear your thoughts on ASUU.
You see, like I said initially, education is politicized in Nigeria. See, the northern elite did not want education, and they are in charge of education at federal level. And so, if a government, tell me where is the morality? If a national government in 2009 could sign an agreement with ASUU, and in 2022, the agreement is not fulfilled, do you blame ASUU? Now,
that's seriously pathetic. That's seriously pathetic.
How can a federal government go into or enter into an agreement with academics and not perform its own end of it? They're not serious. They don't want education. And from my own perspective, I think what this APC government is doing is preparing. Nigeria is not one. I've said it before. Our northern brothers, they look towards the Arabia. So they take their values and their norms from the Arabia.
From them.
But the Southerners, we look towards Western Europe and America, and culturally, we are different. And so the Northerners prefer to send their children, except the children of the elite. They prefer that the children should go to...
It seems a gloomy picture for our youth, and the only solution is having that
the educational sector should close down and then declare it an emergency sector and replan and re-strategize. If you ask all the students in Nigeria to protest in support of ASUU, I'm sure nobody will protest in the north. Because it's the children of the elite, they have scholarship, so they are not suffering.
If the students can
they
come out in the south,
I was immediately Delegiwa was bombed out of existence. I was with Ganifa in his chambers in Antony Village in Lagos. And we had a discussion. And he said, look, Aburo, I have a strategy. I've moved around the higher institutions, that is universities. I've talked to the union leaders. There will be a massive protest on so date. I said, Chief, if there is going to be any protest, it's going to be in the south, west only. And that was what happened. So the next time I saw Ganifa, I said, Chief, didn't I tell you? So there is this tribal, there is this religious, there is, and so the student body, NANS or whatever they call themselves now, cannot act in unison. There are too many factions. And I once asked a student union president, what is the change that education has made in the polity? the body politic. You shout aluta aluta while in the university. Before you out of the university, you've been cornered by the corrupt politicians and you join them. You see? The only one I think, the only student union leader I'm still monitoring, because when I was doing my law in Unilag was Showore. Showore is still his old self. But as soon as these, even students, they contest student union elections just to gain the popularity. As soon as they are out, they are hijacked by politicians and all their looter gone. You see, ASUU is in a very difficult position. But I still support ASUU strike because that's the only weapon. If ASUU can ASUU form a political party to gain power to allow so that they can form government, a socialist government or a social democratic government?
I think that would be an Herculean task.
Yeah. So these are the issues. So I sympathize with that. And what's your opinion about a government that reached agreement, that entered into agreement with university lecturers since 2009 and yet to fulfill their own end of the agreement? What's your that's the problem. So I sympathize with ASUU because the universities they are just they are shadows of their old self. I attended the University of Ibadan in those days. How much was the fees? And we needed only 50 kobo to feed per day. Breakfast was 10 kobo, lunch 20 kobo, and dinner 20 kobo. And there was scholarship. I was at Ibadan for 8 years of scholarship.
When you mention those kind of money, I don't think majority of the students in today's age have seen that. I mean, I spent 50 when I was in primary school, not in secondary. When I was in primary school, my lunch was 50 kobo. So my mom always kept 50 kobo for me, and it's enough for me for lunch. But that was in the 90s. Babangida quickly and subtly destroyed the economy, took the oil windfall, put it wherever he wanted to put it, and that was the end. And today, that we're reaping the mismanagement of over 30, 40 years. We're almost going, but Baba Ajala is just joining us. I know he has something to say with regards to education in Nigeria. Maybe I should unmute him. Baba Ajala, if you can unmute yourself, his network has been playing up today. Maybe he has something to tell us with regards his own perspective of education. I'm sure you've covered quite a lot. We don't seem to. I think we seem to be having a problem with his stream anyway. Baba Ajala will be here with us next week. I just want to thank you, Professor Agbonjimi. You've really enlightened us on education and what ASUU can really do, which is actually nothing. Not nothing, but it's precarious. One of my friends and classmates in university, who happens to be working in the university, there was a rally or campaign in University of Ibadan last week, and they were all just frustrated. They were all frustrated, and you were saying the federal government has signed an agreement with ASUU since 2009, and this is 2022, over 11 years, and they're not ready to keep that agreement, and that's the bane of the problem that ASUU is facing.
How much is ASUU asking for?
Exactly.
How much
compared to what the senator is collecting?
Yes, yeah, that way we don't have we've gotten our priority wrong because those who manage the country for us doesn't believe in
I
education.
don't
Or
see a reason why a senator should not be earning 30,000 naira if they're paying teachers 30,000 naira or workers. So hopefully, Yoruba Nation would come very soon, and education will become a priority again, and our children will be able to get the access to education, sports, and human development. And sponsorship would come. Our higher institution would produce, our companies will produce sporting equipment so that people will get things that will move the economy rather than this marginalization of our children and our youths in the Yoruba space. Thank you very much for coming.
it's my
Hopefully, we
pleasure.
shall. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
lọ́jọ́kọ́jọ́ làbẹ̀wò ìkúkú dùkú lóko podium international wọ́n ti wà tipẹ́tipẹ́ látìgbà tí wọ́n ti ń bàbọ̀ wọn ò fìgbà kan tẹ́rì o wọ́n ti wá ṣe bẹ̀bẹ̀ wọ́n ti gbé bẹ̀bẹ̀ dé podium cinema ni wọ́n tún gbé dé podium cinema lórí YouTube ẹ fọ́lọ̀ wọn kẹ́ ẹ láìkì wọn kẹ́ ẹ subscribe ibẹ̀ lẹ́tì mọ̀ wọ àwọn àjá àbálẹ̀ fíìmù ẹ̀dọ̀kí fíìmù tó léfo gan tààrà podium cinema mo bẹ́rí fún yín